Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Thank you for joining me again today. This week we have another great guest in store for y'all. His name is Fred Elsberry. He is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau, serving Metro Atlanta, Athens, and Northeast Georgia. But no matter where you're listening from, we've got great information that will pertain to you, whether you're in Phoenix, the Gulf Coast, Louisiana. So stay tuned. So Fred, thank you for joining me on the show today.
Well, thank you, Jean. I appreciate being asked.
I could listen to that accent all day long. There's just some niceness about the Southern accent.
Well, I was born with it and hadn't been able to get rid of it, and so I've just gone with it, right?
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Better Business Bureau, first of all.
Well, I am one of these Atlanta natives, which everybody says, "Oh my goodness, that's a rare breed." But
yeah, not too many of those.
Yeah, I'm finding there are more of us than we know. And
they still call me is it called a damn Yankee, a damn Yank, or something like that?
Carpetbagger, or just depending on where you're from. But I think those days are hopefully behind us. Yeah, I was born and raised in East Point. Started working for Delta Airlines in 1963 and worked there until January of 2002.
Wow.
And while I was with Delta, I had the opportunity to serve on the board of directors for the Better Business Bureau for almost 10 years. And so shortly after I retired from Delta, I was teaching up at Georgia State full time, and I got a call. And the president of 33 years was going to retire and wanted to know if I wanted to compete for the position, and I said certainly yes, because I, had a strong belief in what BBB does, and so the rest is history. I've been there 12 and a half years now as the president and CEO.
Do you still teach at Georgia State?
I do, one night a week. I teach airline management, airport management, so different aviation courses in the School of Hospitality.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So why don't we, before we get into some of the other things, just talk about what is the Better Business Bureau? What is it all about? Because you said you knew very, very well you wanted to go there because you knew so much about Better Business Bureau. I'm not sure folks really know.
Well, some people say Better Business Bureau is one of the best-kept secrets we have. I mean, all of us have heard of Better Business Bureau most of our lives. It's a 100-year-old organization. Started out as kind of a self-regulation organization overseeing advertising in the marketplace at the turn of the century. From that, began to handle complaints, really gained quite a reputation nationally during or just subsequent to the stock market crash after the recession because of all the work they did to expose fraudulent securities and those type things. But in today's environment, it's really much more than just complaints and ad reviews, although those are big parts of what we do. But we do a lot of consumer education. We've got a foundation that's devoted to character education for primary and secondary schools. We provide arbitration mediation for companies and consumers that can't get together to resolve issues. We review charities to be sure that potential givers are given to the right organization and organizations that meet our standards. So in a lot of ways, we are still deeply involved in self-regulation, no government involvement with Better Business Bureau, although we work very closely with the government authorities if we find people who are doing things that, just aren't bad service but might be crossing the line into being illegal. So we have very close relationships there. But really our focus is working with businesses and consumers. Our vision is a marketplace where buyers and sellers can trust each other. And that's a marketplace that a lot of small businesses, a lot of small towns go, well, that's what we're all about. And that's so true. I mean, I think about growing up in East Point, and I used to use the example of my mom. I grew up in the 40s and the 50s, and, did we have air conditioning? Well, no, we didn't have air conditioning. So the first thing that happened on a summer morning is Mom would open the front door. course, the screen wasn't locked or anything. And if anybody knocked on the door while she was getting her first cup of coffee, what did Mom say?
Come on in.
Come on in. Exactly right. Not even knowing who it was. And so I tell all my senior friends, I said, times have changed.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, many of us were raised in a very trusting environment. And that's one of the things that makes seniors targets for a lot of the scams out there, is that their basic nature is trustworthiness.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny that you were talking about this morning, because just last night I was sitting down, when I finally got to sit down after the horrible commute.
Yeah.
And we were saying, don't you wish we could just turn back the clock?
Right.
And I said, well, I guess all of the parents say that. Maybe that's just what happens, but I have to think these times are very, very different. I wish we could go back. I think we were watching some Andy Griffith show, and we were saying, those were simpler, easier, happier, more trusting times. So you're so right.
I often say that growing up in East Point in the 40s, 50s, and even the 60s was like growing up in Mayberry. I mean, everybody looked after everybody else. Didn't matter if you were in high school or elementary school. I mean, if I did something wrong walking from elementary school home, my mother knew about it by the time I got home.
That's right. Everybody knew everybody. And, when you talk about going to the schools and teaching character education, it's kind of sad, because we can't give our kids those kinds of lessons.
Right.
Because we also have to protect them. And we've taken so much away from them because they can't be as giving as we were growing up, because times really have changed.
I grew up at a time that Mom would let me out the door in the morning and be home
when the lights on the streets go on.
That's exactly right. And she said, just be sure you're home for dinner, and I'd roam around the neighborhood, and if I had to use a restroom or something, I mean, I had 20 houses I could go to that were just like home. Those people would pick up the phone and tell Mom, Freddie's here, just to let you know I'm going to let him have lunch with Jenny Lee today. And okay, well, that's fine. Boy, you cannot have that environment today, not only in your neighborhood, but when you take your kids out to stores, when you even go to sporting events, where is a time when they can be the children and keep their childhood. But, I think back to, one thing that's really different today is that my brother and I every day we made up a new game, and we'd play it all day long. And then the next day we might pick up that game, we might pick up another one. But today kids just don't have the luxury of taking that time just to get outside and be a kid. Now, we try to teach them those things in an organized environment. I mean, sports is a great teacher. Other organizations are great teachers for these things. But unfortunately, character education is something that you and I got at home. We got it at church. We got it from the adults we interacted with. And today, not all kids have that opportunity or privilege.
So let's talk a little bit about that. We are going to get to the Better Business Bureau.
Oh, no problem.
And we're going to talk about some scams that you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
So stay with us, because we've got some very important information to share. But I will say, in these times, this is an important conversation to have. Mm-hmm. We were talking at lunch on Tuesday, and we were just talking about how scary the world has become. And we just discussed, all we can do is love our circles.
Right.
And hope that spreading love in our circles spreads love in bigger circles and just keeps going. We cannot control what else is going on. And I suppose that's the scariest part, because these folks that are so filled with evil and hate, they were predisposed to a whole different type of upbringing.
That's right.
And all we can do is fight that with goodness and love, and that's the only thing we can control.
And unfortunately, they're as passionate and as dedicated to the things that they grew up believing as we are about the things that we grew up believing.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, I've raised 5 boys. I've got a 6-year-old now. So, when I
Wait,
look
you
at
have a
them,
6-year-old.
I do. I have a six-year-old, wonderful little guy that keeps you young.
Yes.
Although I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that works. But
Cute.
I've got this theory, and I think that if I looked at the research, it's probably true. Is that we, as parents, aunts and uncles and cousins, we have the greatest influence over our kids until they're about 11, 12, or 13. And then their peers, their teachers, the other people they interact with begin to have more influence over them than we do. And so I think it's very important that we take very seriously our role during those formative years to build those beliefs and those behaviors and those core values in these kids. Now, with all the influences they have, they may go away from them and they may separate from them, but if you've done a good job, at some point they're going to come back to them. And particularly when they get to the point where they get married, get otherwise engaged, begin to have children, begin to realize the influence and the potential influence they have in young lives, hopefully then they'll reflect back on some of those things that we put into them.
Right.
And they'll go, I wish I'd have been nicer to my dad at the time, or my mom. And so I really think, that we've just got a tremendous responsibility as a community, as an individual, as a society, to really take care of our kids. I mean, they're our future business people. They're our future politicians. They're our future consumers. And, sometimes folks say, well, why does the Better Business Bureau interested in character education for primary and secondary schools? Aren't you about keeping businesses honest? And I said, but these are our future businesses,
That's right.
and these are our future consumers. And if we can have any input into a generation of trustworthy consumers and businesses, they'll enjoy the interaction between themselves, and it'll be an environment that we can always be proud of. And another thing that I've learned is if you're doing something good, I guarantee you the devil's going to be looking over your shoulder trying to put obstacles in your way. And that's really the first clue you have that you must be on the right path. And there's sure a lot of those obstacles being put up for our kids today, and we have to work hard to overcome those.
And really, it's just communicating.
It is. Keep those lines open. Yeah.
And help them understand their choices are their own, but they have the power to make the right ones.
Yeah.
And just teaching and being there for when those experiences happen. So thank you for the work that you do in the schools, because it goes right with what we were talking about at
Very
lunch the other day.
gratifying.
You can
Sure.
only do what you can do.
Right.
You can only control your small part of this world, but hopefully that breeds itself. So nobody is helpless. Everybody can offer something to this
Right.
world right now. Didn't know
Right.
we were going to be talking about this today, but I think it is so very, very important, because I hope that the good can be spread, especially right now.
And it is more of a challenge today. I mean, when I was growing up, the traditional family was mom and dad and 3 kids, and mom was usually at home until the kids started to school. And a traditional family today is anything but traditional. Although I would say that the diversity we have in family structures today can actually be a strength if it's channeled in the right direction. And whether it's grandparents raising grandkids, uncles raising kids that can't otherwise, take it on themselves. You still have the traditional families, but even there, it's usually, both parents have to work just to make ends meet in this economy,
Right.
and it's just a lot of challenges today. And I agree with you. Through those challenges, we have to keep the focus on our kids, our children, because they're the ones that are going to carry those values on. You look back to the North American Indians, and they used to pass their traditions down from generation to generation. They always had an elder who was responsible for that. And in a lot of ways, that was a structural environment in a very simple world.
Right.
But you even needed that structure then to be sure that those stories, those core values got carried on from generation to generation. So we have those torches to bear.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do in the schools.
Thank you.
But we do have to talk about what we brought you here to talk about today. So the Better Business Bureau is about making sure that there's a good connection between business and the community.
Right.
And that the businesses are continually challenged to make the right choices as well in business.
Right.
And that consumers have a voice if they feel that they weren't done right by the business.
You know, Gene, businesses, a lot of people go, gosh, those business people, hell, they're consumers too.
Right.
And that's the great part about working in a business is you go, well, what is great customer service? Well, what does great customer service mean to you? I mean, you're a consumer. What do you expect? And your customers probably don't expect anything less.
Now, I've never really thought about the Better Business Bureau too much until you have a really bad experience with a company.
Right.
And if I'm to the point where I'm going to be calling the Better Business Bureau on you, you really didn't do well.
Yeah.
So
that threat alone may get you some attention. Huh?
I don't know. I hope so. And, I can't even remember, but I remember a couple years ago, I was really furious with a company that I can't even remember what it was. And I think I did write to the Better Business Bureau. I know who it is, and I'm not going to call them out, but it was had to do with my television.
Yeah.
And bad customer service. But anyway, so I assume you get an awful lot of complaints.
We do. We'll handle just here in Atlanta, and we handle all the complaints for the companies that are headquartered in our 42 county service area. So we're one of the top complaint handlers in the country because we've got people like Home Depot, Equifax. We do AT&T's complaints. We do Delta Airlines, UPS, Equifax. So there are a lot of really large companies here in our area, and we'll handle over 60,000 complaints this year.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I'm really proud of is that about 80% of those end up in some form of resolution with the company and the consumers getting together and coming to a point where they can feel like they can move forward. Yeah.
Let's talk about that because you really kind of feel helpless as a consumer. I actually am remembering the company I was upset with, and it was not a television company. It had to do with a vacuum I bought for my pool.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just felt so helpless. I finally called the CEO after I went up and up and up and up and dug and got a phone number and called the CEO's assistant and told them everything. But, you're still out. So I guess it's good to talk to you today. Not just I guess. It is. Because I kept going further within the company, but I didn't think that I could get anywhere about retribution or what have you.
I would say that probably the most frequent reason that people come to BBB is that the communication with the company is broken down. I mean, maybe the person you did the deal with is no longer with the company anymore. You just don't know who to call. And so one service we really provide is if you go to our website, bbb.org, and you put the name of the company in, it'll pull up a business review on that company. You'll be able to see that they've been rated from an A+ to an F. You'll be able to read any complaints that have been filed against the company. You'll be able to read the answers that they provided to those complaints. You'll be able to look at customer reviews, which about 80% of those are positive. So you kind of get a balanced view of the company.
Do you do the rating? The Better Business Bureau?
Actually, the company earns a rating. We have
based on.
That's right. The rating is driven by a formula that takes into consideration the volume of complaints they have, the types of complaints, their responsiveness to complaints.
This is important because, in the world of the internet,
right,
you can go on, look at the company or research. I was looking for a bike for my son, and he wanted a folding electric bike. So I'm looking and I'm reading all the reviews. But that's not necessarily real.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody who represents the company can go in and write a review.
Right.
And we don't necessarily think about that. And we're basing decisions on maybe bogus fake reviews. But if you're going to the Better Business, and I didn't, and I will going forward.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if we're going to your site, it's validated, I'm assuming, and that's how you come up with your ratings and your ranks.
That's correct. In fact, let's look at the complaint process and the review process. On the complaint process, if you file a complaint, you'll immediately get an acknowledgement. It goes to the company, and then we'll work with them to be sure they're responsive to your complaint. Ultimately, once all said and done, we're going to report both the complaint as well as the answer. On the customer review side, we also send those to the company to verify that this is in fact a customer
See,
of the
that's
company.
the important
Right.
thing that's missing.
And of course, we have the ability to check and see, are we getting numerous reviews from the same IP address, maybe with different names? If we are, we're going to suppress those reviews. But we're going to give the company an opportunity to validate that this is in fact one of their customers. I mean, if they come back and say, we've never done business with Fred before, then we're going to go back to Fred and we're going to say, well, we need some evidence you've done business with them before we're going to, publish your review. And so to that extent, as you say, most people know that when they look at the reviews, they may or may not be 100%. You're probably going to get some directional information. So I always recommend to people, I said, get information everywhere you can. Just recognize that if you get it everywhere else you can, and you narrow it down to 2 or 3 companies, then come to bbb.org and see what kind of a record they have established for themselves in the marketplace. Read some complaints, read their answers, read their reviews, look at our rating. Another important part of that review is it will give you a name, a phone number, and an email address of somebody to contact who the company has given us as somebody you can resolve a problem with.
And really, you're doing the company a favor.
Oh, yeah.
Because the folks that started the company, grew the company, are passionate about the service, might be missing that it's not what they thought it was.
Sure.
And as one person complaining to a director somewhere, it might not get to the right folks. But the Better Business Bureau calling the company saying, hey, look, there's a trend here, will get notice and may affect some change.
And we'll get it to the right people. Most companies recognize that, it's, in fact, there was some research done by Coca-Cola years ago that it costs 5 times as much to get a new customer as it does to keep the one you have.
Right.
And so most companies recognize the value of repeat business, and most of them look at complaints and reviews as a gift for just the reason you explained there. Because the reality is that if one person's complaining, there are probably 10 people that had the problem. You just didn't hear from the others.
Right.
And so respond to it, change the way you do things, look at your policies. That's the way a company stays in business as long as people like Delta and Coca-Cola and UPS and folks like that, is they listen to their customers.
So we never have enough time. We have to take a quick break.
Okay.
However, I do want to talk about, maybe I can get Fred to talk about some of the best companies he knows of out there based on the work that he's doing, just to tip us all off on who is really good out there. It would be interesting for me. And then also, we have to talk about some scams that we have got to let you know about. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Again, thanks for joining me today. I am still here with Fred Elsberry, and he is the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau of Metro, Atlanta, Athens, and Northeast Georgia. However, stay tuned. If you're listening from Phoenix or the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi, we want to talk to you today about some of the largest scams that are going around the business community at the moment. We're going to give you a tip on a brand new website that you can go to track scams all the way down to your zip code to find out what the latest scams in your city are. I'm going to try that while you're talking here on the radio here, Fred.
Okay.
And just to let you know, Fred is here from the Better Business Bureau, and we talk about what the Better Business Bureau is. A lot of times it's complaints, but it's also about the folks at the Better Business Bureau helping communities and businesses work together in the best way possible. And Fred also goes to community schools to teach character education to help our future business leaders and spread good character, positivity, great leadership amongst the kids so that the future businesses can run with the integrity that the Better Business Bureau hopes for. Did I say that right, Fred?
It was a pretty good recap. Thank you, Jenny.
But I want to delve into, we were talking about scams and we were talking about complaints. And I do just want to reiterate, I got really mad at one company and I just kept calling and just kept going up the ladder. I want to talk to your supervisor, I want to talk to your manager, I want to talk to your director, I want to talk to somebody else until I called the CEO. But what I didn't do is take it that one step further and call the Better Business Bureau. And honestly, not just out of my frustration, but for the betterment of the company.
Right.
I'm just one person. If the Better Business Bureau gets involved with these companies, then they're going to listen. And you may affect change. Whether or not the result for you is good or not, you're going to get the ear, unlike us individually, if you're calling from the Better Business Bureau. So, folks, I implore you that if you've had a great or a bad experience with a company.
Report the good ones as well as the bad ones.
And we don't think about that, but connecting the dots back to the Better Business Bureau is very, very important because they do work with the businesses more than us as individuals. And we forget that sometimes. We'll just throw a review up on their website and leave, and that's not good enough.
That's right. That's right.
So let's talk about, I want to get involved with some of these scams that are going on today, but before we go there, you must know through all the folks calling you with all the positive remarks and the complaints who the great businesses are out there based on your knowledge from the Better Business Bureau.
Right.
I think that if you know you're getting accolades from the community, right, left, and center, we really need to tout them. What are some of those companies that you just consistently hear great things about?
Well, there are companies and companies that when I mention the names, you'll go, well, those are people that really value service. And another thing that's important is if they value service, they probably treat their employees well because they understand that if they treat their employees well, they'll take care of their customers.
That's right.
So here in the United States, a company on the restaurant side is Chick-fil-A. When you think of Chick-fil-A, you think about their strong values. They treat character, and they treat their people very well. And they're always pleased that you come to see them. I think among the airlines, if you look at Delta Airlines, Southwest, which is kind of a different model from Delta, is more of the low cost model, but Southwest kind of, under promises and over delivers. And so you have, they have a strong, loyal group of customers that follow them. And certainly here in the southeastern part and now really worldwide, you've got Delta Airlines that.
Before we get to Delta,
sure.
I love Southwest.
Good carrier.
I actually have room for my knees that are not knocking into the seat in front of me. It has gotten so bad, and I'm not going to mention any airline names negatively, but I'm tall. I'm 5'8", and a woman crosses their legs. And one thing I don't understand the airlines don't think about, why not move those tray tables up just a notch so that when we're sitting in those seats crossing our legs, they're not knocking on the tray tables? Yeah. Drives me
Particularly when the guy in front of you leans his seat all the way back, right?
Or sits in and really bounces and hits that kneecap of yours. I just flew back a couple of days ago on a flight. But I'm telling you, I understand it's hard for them to make money, but we got to do something because it's getting narrower and narrower and narrower. And that's why I love
Right.
Southwest.
Yeah.
Because they seem to have more room
Mm-hmm.
between those seats. I don't know. You probably know more about it. You worked for Delta for all those years. But
Well, things have certainly changed in the industry. When I first got in them, they made money with airplanes that were half full. Now they have to have them 80% full to make money. So that's an industry that's changed a lot over the last few decades.
yeah.
But I look at some of the retail stores that services. I mean, they all have to have excellent products, but service is the differentiator. And we all know the ones that are at the top of the scale, the Nordstroms and folks like that. To me, an example of a good company is one that tells their that communicates the values of the companies through stories, right? Whether it be stories that employees have had about their engagement in the company, or stories that customers have had, or things they've done from customers. I think Nordstrom, probably in the retail area, probably does that as well as anybody, because we always hear about what they've done to go that extra mile. We used to have a store here in Atlanta called Riches, and Riches had a policy they would take anything back from anybody.
Wow.
And people would say, well, gosh, that belt that guy just brought back and you gave him a new belt, that wasn't bought here at Riches. And they go, yeah, but think about where they'll come back to the next time they want to buy something else. And so, we look at policies, we look at how they treat their employees, we look at, because we know the relationship with their people. But those are a few of the companies that all of us can go, yeah. Now, do you ever have problems with those companies? Absolutely.
Sure.
I mean, you're not insulated from problems, but they carry that same philosophy, that next step into helping resolve the problems. Again, as I mentioned, because they understand the importance of those repeat customers.
We say that in our company, where I'm in healthcare, and it's 24/7, and it's human beings.
Yeah.
So you're going to mess
Yeah.
up, because nobody is perfect all of the time.
Right.
And it's a crisis situation when you're in home care and hospice. And but what we say is, one, it's always our fault. I don't care what the story is. It's always our fault, because somehow somebody's not happy.
Right.
So we need to address it, figure out what tools, processes, and resources we need to put in place so that we can get better in the future. And two, the way you handle a complaint can bring you 10 times more customers.
Right.
Because people remember if they weren't satisfied and you made them satisfied after that, and they're more apt to talk about that than if everything's just going rosy from the start.
Well, Gene, that same research that Coca-Cola did years ago, and this is and if you think of this intuitively, is so true, that people are actually more loyal to a customer they've had a problem with that has been taken care of than they are to a company with which they've never had a problem. Now think about that, just to the point you were just making there. If somebody takes care of your problem, that stands, right in the front of your mind, and you're going to think about them the next time. And your loyalty index is actually increased for them when they see that. And that's what I tell companies. I deal with some companies that just don't understand why they, that customer was crazy. Maybe, but you've got an opportunity to educate here, and they may be somebody who is loyal to you. But let me tell you, word of mouth is the most effective advertising any of us can have.
I'm going to tell you, I went to take my car for an oil change. I dropped it off at 8 in the morning, went and walked in the park, went grocery shopping. He said it'd be about 2 hours. Came back, hadn't even taken it yet.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God, I have people coming over. I'm not going to be able to get back to pick my car up. And I was very disappointed, but I wasn't mean. I knew he was busy. But I said, you told me 2 hours. If I knew, then I
Right.
wouldn't have, I just would have gone somewhere else, because I'm flying out. I needed this done. So I said, okay, well, I'll just leave it. I'll figure out a way to get it in the morning. Left. I wasn't terribly angry. I was frustrated. I was kind of disappointed. So he called me back. I got the car the next day because I had company. I couldn't get to the oil change place. And when I went to pick it up, he said, Jean, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And here's a card for a free oil change when you come back. And I said, no, you don't have to do that.
Right.
It was disappointing, but I'm not expecting free service. But what that did not only did I go back for the free oil change, but guess how many cars I have in my family? 3.
Exactly.
So, and now I will drive the extra distance to go there to get my oil change versus going somewhere else that's convenient because he showed me he cares about me being a customer.
Yeah.
And my purse is not near me, and I really want to give them a shout out, but they're in Kennesaw, Cobb Parkway, next to Burger King and Walgreens.
Well, you know, Jean, if you think about it, running a great business is a simple formula, but sometimes the implementation is not always easy. I mean, first of all, do what you tell people you're going to do. If something happens you can't do that, communicate. And if some adverse outcome ends up, do something about it. You do those 3 things. I don't care whether you're, Elsberry Plumbing on the corner down here or Nordstrom's or Delta Airlines or Southwest. Those simple things are going to differentiate you from your competition and keep those people coming back.
Well, so thank you. Any other names you want to shout out? Middle business, smaller business?
I would say that just as a general rule, when you go to bbb.org, you can actually limit your search to BBB accredited businesses.
Oh, great.
And those are the businesses that have been vetted by the Better Business Bureau as meeting our standards. So you can have a level of confidence with them. If you see the BBB seal on a business, that might lead you to somebody. Again, no guarantee that you won't have problems, but if you have a problem, this is a company that we found responds to the issues that are brought to their attention and understand the importance of repeat business and customer service.
Again,
so
folks,
as a general rule,
bbb.org. And so important, and it's not top of mind. You had said when I met you, the Better Business Bureau is the best kept secret.
Right.
We need to change that because this is a great resource for us as consumers. And in this day and age, with the internet and everything, you can get easily scammed or you can get bad service terribly.
We're very fortunate now. If you put a company in on Google, you're probably going to, the first or second thing is you're going to get their BBB report almost just organically because of the power of the search engine optimization we have out there. So, we get a lot of people who go to bbb.org to look for companies. But we also work very hard so that you find BBB and those companies through other portals like Google, like Yahoo, and those kinds of places. Plus, we've got some great partnerships with people like Home Advisor, Porch.com, who are also leading people to contractors that they can trust. And they on their websites, they identify the BBB accredited businesses and also link directly to their business review.
Okay,
so
great.
we really want to explode your access to that information.
Speaking of exploding access to information, you were telling me about your brand new website that has just gone gangbusters.
BBB Scam Tracker.
BBB Scam Tracker.
Well, it's actually on bbb.org.
Okay. You can just type in BBB.
If you put in bbb.org, up in the top right-hand corner, it says BBB Scam Tracker. And you link there.
I'm loving this. I just typed it in.
Yeah.
I've never been here before. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's that? So let's talk about that.
Okay.
So you can type in, walk us through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you go to bbb.org. The first thing it's going to ask you is your zip code so that it can get you to the home page of your local Better Business Bureau. And then when you get to that home page, up in the upper right-hand corner, it'll say BBB Scam Tracker. Double-click on BBB Scam Tracker, and the first thing it'll give you an opportunity to do is to report a scam. And so you're actually able to put information in about a scam that either you've heard other people have been exposed to. They may be something that's happened to you. You put in all of your information. All of your personal information is suppressed. None of that is given through the scam tracker, although we have that information on the backside because we ask these people, would you be willing to talk to law enforcement? Would you be willing to talk to the media? And if they say yes, then when media or law enforcement contacts us, we can immediately connect them to the people who have been victims of these scams. And so these are being reported real time, and so then you scroll down on that page if you don't have a scam to report, and it'll show you a map of the United States.
Cool.
And you'll see maybe 20 really, red dots on there, and those are kind of concentrations of scams that are happening in those areas, like South Florida yesterday when I was looking at it, had a big red thing over that. But you can zone in on that. Let's say, for example, you're interested in Metro Atlanta. You can zone in on that map and actually see, well, there have been 72 scams reported in Metro Atlanta. You hit that 72, and then it zooms in even further, so it gives you the cities. There have been 6 reported in Riverdale. What are they? You double click on that and it would tell you they may be IRS imposter scams.
And this is national. We're talking about Atlanta right now, but it's anywhere you live.
That's right. This is all of North America and Canada and the United States. And then when you get down, so you can find, so what are the kind of things our friends in McDonough, for example, I'm speaking to one of my senior groups down in McDonough tomorrow, and before I go, I'm going to pull up the scam tracker and see, so what's been reported here in the last several days. And so we can talk to them about the grandparent scam. We can talk to them about the IRS imposter scam.
So let's talk about some of the top scams that are out there right now. I've heard of some scary ones I'm going to ask you about, but you tell me, what are the top scams going on right now, nationally and locally?
Well, what we find is that scams follow the news, okay? And so we know that within the next week we'll begin to see false charity appeals to help people in Paris. We know that that'll happen. We got it when the Syrian refugees were moving within the continent. We began to get calls about telephone calls and emails that people were getting about charity relief for those folks.
And it's so sad. You want to give, but that's why you really should go to a well-known organization.
Absolutely.
Even if it is in the goodness of someone's hearts, those smaller organizations that you just never know.
Well, you don't, Gene. And particularly this time of the year with Thanksgiving and Christmas, our hearts are really more open than they are at other times of the year. And when these type things happen, then we just know that it's going to generate. And so we put a lot of releases out about charity appeals and those type things.
What are some great charities to give to then if you want to help the crisis of the moment that you know the money is going to get there?
I would say that certainly the Red Cross is one where a large percentage of the money you give actually impacts the people on the ground. In fact, one of the things we tell folks is when you give to a charity, be sure it's one that has feet on the ground there that are actually helping the people. I think about when Katrina occurred. We had a lot of fake charity appeals then. So give to people. United Way, American Red Cross, people that come top of mind to you. You can go. We have a website, give.org. that evaluates all national charities. And so you can go on there and you can see, what percentage of the dollar you give them actually goes to the services you expect them to go to. But the one thing I tell people, that when you get a phone call about a charity and you're not heard from them, but you are interested in what they're doing, ask them for some information. If they are a legitimate charity, they will send you information and they'll be happy to get your donation at any time.
That's right.
If they're not a legitimate charity, they're not going to be able to send you information, and they're going to be pressuring you to make a donation while they've got you on the call. So pressure and the lack of information are two very red flags to keep you from being, a victim of a charity scam.
So what are the top scams that are besides the charity scam that we want to get the community aware of now?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing is the phantom debt collection. People that get calls, either they've had a loved one passed away, and the call says, "Well, they owed money. We understand you're a part of the estate. We can settle with you, pennies on the dollar right now. Send me money." That kind of flows over into the funeral scam, people that are looking at obituaries and contacting the next of kins and again, same type debt situation. There's another one. I mean, we always hear about pyramid schemes.
This, I heard about this too.
Yeah, and so we've seen a resurgence of what we call gift clubs. And these are clubs that usually provide some kind of an affinity connection, maybe a religious connection, maybe your women's club or whatever, maybe your school.
There was one going around Facebook. Donate $10 and you'll get 36 gifts or something like that.
That's exactly right. And so you'll get invited to an exclusive event. And they may not ask you for money then, but ultimately they're going to ask you for money. And the people who get in early and put the money in, then there's pressure on them to recruit other people to pay money. And so the people that get in early get a windfall from that. But eventually the money runs out when they can't recruit enough people to put money in the pool. And that's nothing more than a pyramid scheme.
And folks, I got this from the highest character friend of mine on Facebook.
Right.
And I think she really thought, you know what, this is a wonderful time of year. Let's do this, our group. And she immediately took it down when she realized that it was a scam. But so it doesn't matter. They prey on your friends.
They do.
So, but just be cognizant of the fact that, you know what, maybe I can do this myself. Send private messages.
And for example, one of the philosophies that deals around this scam is what we call the credibility philosophy. And they want to build credibility. So they go through friends that you trust. They go through organizations that you trust. It may sound like an organization you're dealing with. It's probably not the real one.
What is the IRS imposter?
Well, the IRS imposter scam, again, realizing that scams are going to hit us around that time. And so you're going to find after the first of the year, they're going to be a rash of phone calls to people saying that I'm calling from the IRS. We show that you have back taxes that haven't been paid. Unless they're paid today, we're going to be arresting you this afternoon. And so, first of all, the IRS is not going to call people.
Yeah, get off the phone and call the IRS.
They're not going to send you. They're not going to send you emails. They're going to go the old-fashioned way. They're going to write you, right? And they're going to give you an opportunity to come in and engage with them. But the IRS imposter scam will happen again this spring. We just know it like clockwork.
And then lottery?
The lottery. Oh, this is the one.
Here's what I did, folks, just so you know. I just typed
You're using the scam tracker,
I did.
aren't
I went
you?
to bbbscamtracker.org. I didn't put a zip code in or anything because I wanted the global. And top ones, IRS imposter, lottery, home improvement, yellow pages directories, debt collectors, advanced fee loans, and then you can click that on and it'll tell you what it's all about.
That's right.
So this is a great tool for all of us. And make sure your parents and your grandparents know about this.
And for seniors, your grandkids and your kids. That's
because
what I
seniors
preach to
are
my
targets.
Seniors. They are.
Yeah. I hate that we always run out of time, but top 3 things you want folks to know before we finish the show today.
Number 1 is protect your identity. Don't trust people you don't know. Don't give your personal information to people that you don't know. That's just a great general rule. The second thing is, keep that heart of trust, but protect it. Understand the environment's different today than when we all grew up with that trust. That's right.
If it sounds good, research it, then you can do it.
And those red flags, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If somebody's pressuring you to do something that's going to separate you from your money, that's probably a sign that that's not the case. And with charities, always ask for information. It's a great way to get off that phone and know legitimate charities versus fake ones.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming in
today.
Thank you, Jane. Again, that's bbb.org, and check out that scam tracker at BBB Scam Tracker. I'm Jeannie Pete. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day and week ahead, and listen here same time next week and every week. Homestead Hope Foundation is your resource for a healthy life. God bless.